I'm such a nerd about this stuff. Um, was so into what I was talking about that I wasn't paying attention to my clock, and so I suspect I got cut mid-sentence at the end of that second part. My bad. But anyway, what I was going to say in conclusion is that if you've been following what I've been doing here, I'm modeling what you and your partner will do for your own respective database um, and that final project. Only difference is that you should not be recording yourself real time. You should be going through these databases on your own so that you've got a clean, fluid presentation that you can offer for your own screencast when it comes time. And then on Tuesday, again, as a foreshadowing of what's to come, I'll show you how to actually do this. How do you actually do a screencast? So if you've never done it before, I'll do that in class so you get a feel for how to use the technology in order to create this. But I'm going to move away from LexisNexis. I've pretty much said all I need to say on that one. The other one I want to talk about is Access World News, and then we'll go back to how you should be spending the rest of your class time with whatever remains. Now, Access World News, as I said, LexisNexis, great for news stories, but on a broader national scale. What I like about Access World News is that it offers a more local perspective. And so you could go anywhere on the globe looking for media content. For now, we'll stick with North America. That would probably be of greatest interest to all of you. And if we take a look, we can narrow this down then into countries. Obviously, the United States has the most robust access, but we do have Canada represented, a couple in Mexico even. I'm going to say that we're interested in Indiana, and there's 58 sources, media sources accessible there. Now, I can tell you there are more than 58 sources in Indiana, but again, not all of them permit access to their content. And if you look here, you'll see there's a lot of communities represented. We do have the Ball State Daily News in here. So there's that. If you were looking for some archived content through the Daily News, you do have that option. But as we scroll, I think my camera might be blocking some of the communities here, but you'll notice Muncie outside of the DN, it's not represented by the Star Press. Unfortunately, that one isn't accessible, but you have things from Lebanon, Merrillville, Peru, Michigan City, Lafayette, Kokomo. I mean, you've got some very specific localized media content that would be available here that you could search. So that would be an advantage of Access World News. And so if we were looking for a couple things, I'll do a quick search. I think now you kind of got a feel for this, but I'm going to guess most of you don't know this. So what you could do, I mean, obviously, this would be something that you would want to exemplify if you were doing the screencast for this database. Notice that you can search not only all text, but specific areas of a story. If you were looking for a specific source, or the author, if you knew those things, remember the first step of the research process is identifying what the hell it is you're looking for. So if you know what that is, you can enter that in here too as a way to narrow your search right off the bat. Here's your Boolean operators. Then in here you've got dates, that you could look for if you were looking for that. Or what you could do is, let's say you did before, let's do before January 1st. When did that happen? Let's do 1995. And then, yeah, we're searching North America publications specifically in the US and in Indiana. So if we search for that, real time, at least as I'm doing it, aha, you don't get too many results, but I'm trying to zero in on a little piece of history that I'm guessing they don't tell you on the campus tours when you came to Ball State way back when. Let's see here. Is this the one? Yeah, October 20th. We'll click on this one so you actually can see a result. Um, let's see here. Yeah, this was back in October of 94, so this would have been 21 years ago, almost to the date. Uh, three teenagers in connection with the death of a Ball State University student. and they're going after the death penalty for one. And actually, one of those guys still is on death row, I believe. What happened was, let's see here, indicate that Turner, a 19-year-old, shot this Ball State student. Do they say what was going on here? Oh, yeah, here it is. So this kid, it's this is such a crazy story, and I'm gonna guess that you had no idea that this ever happened. What happened was this kid, he was a sophomore. I think he was from Pendleton, if memory serves. I don't know if it says it in this story or not. But what happened was he was walking his girlfriend home, dropped her off at her residence hall, and then he was walking home alone. I believe if you took Neely past the Student Wellness Center, past Student Health, there's some houses there past New York. A lot of students rent those out. If you kept going toward Minnetrista, it's the very last block there before you hit the Neely Wheeling intersection just outside of Minnetrista there. That's, I think, where this happened. And they picked him up. They robbed him, but they didn't really get much from him. I don't know if it says exactly how much they took from him, but they shot him point blank, execution style, right there off campus. So yeah, I had no idea. I mean, that's kind of a crazy bit of history, and that's not exactly a favorable piece of history that I'm sure they're going to talk about. And plus, it was 20 years ago. But again, this is a good example of a story that you could find through Access World News. There's no way you'd find something like this in LexisNexis Academic. So I give you this and take a look. It gives you the publication, the date. Here again, well, this was lifted from the AP, but it does give you the sections that it appeared in the Fort Wayne publication. So again, I could go into greater detail, but I think you get the idea that these databases are out there. So, I mean, depending on what it is you're looking for, certain databases might be a good fit for you than others. Now, one thing that I didn't do, and I want to make sure that we go back into this, I need to revisit those database questions. So, okay, well, we'll get back to that in a second. This is what I really wanted. All right. When you have a need for scholarly content, how should you strategize or prioritize your reading of it? And which database would be best for local media content? I just showed you the database. So question 7, Access World News would be your answer. For question 6, I have to go back into required reading and viewing. And I do believe this was one of your assignments. And this time I will actually emphasize this. This comes from North Carolina State University. I like this interactive graphic because what it does, let me make it a bit larger here. There we go. Wow, it's kind of blurry to me. I don't know if that's just my computer or not, but in any case, the point of this is that it breaks down a scholarly article. And we talked about that last Thursday in those screencasts that I gave you. Obviously, the title comes at the top. You got authors, you've got an abstract here, usually at the beginning before it goes into the body, the text. And then finally, at the end, after your conclusion, you have then your list of references. What I was going to say in question 6, pull that back up here, when you have a need for scholarly content, how should you strategize or prioritize your reading? There actually is a strategy to that. Most people tend to start right at the beginning. They start with the introduction, then they move on to all the charts and the graphs. They maybe don't understand what those charts or graphs really mean because it's all academic mumbo jumbo, and then they get to the conclusion 20 some odd pages later. It's long, it's cumbersome. You shouldn't read it like that. Now, I know that defies logic that you learned since you were 5 years old. Start from the top, go left to right, from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. That's not the most efficient way to read scholarly articles. In my estimation, what you ought to do is you obviously should start and pay attention to the authors at the top because those might be potential sources, human sources you could interview. Definitely read the abstract, and if you click on this, it tells you what an abstract is. It's just a brief summary. It's usually 250 words, but what it does is it gives you a snapshot of what all is contained in that article. So what were they trying to discover? How did they go about doing it? And what exactly did they find? That's all going to be up there at top in the abstract. So start there, yes, at the beginning. But then after that, I would not go into the introduction. I would jump over here to this, the conclusion. I don't really need to click on this to tell you what a conclusion is. I know that you know that. However, go to the end. Now, there'll be other words, other euphemisms for conclusion. They may call it discussion or implications. But the bottom line, go to the end, right before the references, the list of sources that these authors cited in their article text. Go to the section right before that, conclusion, implications, whatever. What that's going to tell you is why this study matters. Why is it important? It's a bigger picture conversation that I think you should read after the abstract. Then, after that, if you're still interested and want more information, then I would go back to the introduction. And this is going to outline then the thesis or the argument of the research in this particular scholarly article. So then I would go there, and then I would probably, if you're still interested at that point, then go into the charts and the graphs. But that's going to get into a lot of specific details that more than likely won't be applicable to your journalistic needs. But that's what I'm getting at. You should be skipping around. Don't read all 20 pages. It's not necessary. Start with the abstract, know what's going on, then get to the implications. Why does this study matter? Just jump right to the end and then back it up into the middle of the article text. So that was the answer then to question 6, and that should round out the questions for those database um, prompts that I gave you starting last week and then finishing up this week. So I am paying attention to my clock on this part. So let's round this out. At this point, you now have exposure to certain databases that might be useful to you. I will say that when you're evaluating sources, there is a folder in online material that would be important. You could click on this. I have a couple of universities and their idea of how to evaluate content. There's one here that's really interesting too on Pixar Video. So if you're a journalist and you've got pictures or video, how do you know that they're authentic? How do you know that you're not being duped and that someone hasn't photoshopped something or set it up in a way that it is inaccurate? This graphic, you should take a look at this, and it prompts you with certain questions. Do you know who captured the photo? Do you know where it was taken, when it was taken? And they've set it up kind of like a traffic light. If it's red, there's reason then maybe why you won't want to use that picture. But if you get further to the right into the green, then you're establishing authenticity or credibility as it pertains to visual imagery. So this one I definitely think you should look at. When it comes to online content that may or may not be visual, maybe textual, there's some questions here too, much like that other one I just showed you a moment ago, that you should be able to answer. This one happens to come from Penn State, or actually, yeah, I think it's the University of Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact, but that's neither here nor there. The point is the questions. Does the author have a relevant degree? Do they have other publications about this topic? Are they trying to promote something? When you follow the money trail, are they connected to, funding that would have then a bias or an agenda? So there's a checklist here that you should be going through, and some of the hints that I offered in that 10 source assignment are based off of this folder with these checklists. But as I said, finding information isn't going to be the issue for you. It's the evaluation of it that's going to be important. How do you know that the information you're going to use in your journalistic endeavors is in fact credible? So this folder could be very useful for you as you go about that 10 source assignment over the weekend. So that is your assignment. That's something you could get started on with the time that remains. You also then need to visit with your partner. And again, here's that list. It's also available over here in Blackboard if you want to look at it there. Otherwise, Sam can just pause the video and leave this up on the screen. But your partner is listed. I didn't give you much choice there, and I know that for some of you, the idea of group work is a lot like this, a tweet that I once saved. Um, I think that a lot of people feel this way when it comes to group work, and I get that. But the reality is that you got to get used to working with people. It's just a necessary part of working as an adult. And so find your partner, exchange that contact info, and then take these databases as listed here and rank them 1 to 4 on a sheet of paper. Put your name on it, give it to Samantha before you leave. That's also very, very important. And then, obviously starting your assignment. And don't forget about your quizzes. You can also get a jump start on those too. So I will see you in class on Tuesday. that's I think where we'll leave it for now, and then we'll be talking more about how to actually do a screencast at that time. Have a great weekend.